Welcome to the Sales SOS podcast, where we answer your sales distress calls. I'm your host, Liz Heiman, bringing the rescue boat to your sales challenges. In this ever-changing sales environment, it's easy for leaders to feel adrift. We're here to be the beacon guiding you to success. Each episode, I'm joined by top sales experts and practitioners who have navigated this waters and come out victorious. Together, we'll uncover the insights and strategies that will help you hit your sales targets and grow your business. So if you're ready to turn your sales distress into sales success, you're in the right place. Let's dive into today's topic. Welcome to the Sales SOS podcast. I'm Liz Heiman, your host, and I'm here with your Sales SOS podcast crew, Darryl Praill, Renee Bigelow, Bowen, and Brynne Tillman.
Hey.
And we are talking about kicking off your new year the right way. How are we going to make the best 2025 we can possibly have? We want to start by talking about new year, new you. What are you doing? What do you need to do? What do we need to do to improve ourselves to make for a better new year?
I'll share one thing that I always do. I usually do it between the week of Christmas and New Year's, but this year I had some unexpected travel. So I do it the first week or two as soon as I'm past holiday travel. And that is really tackle the list of things that are like a monkey on my back, like the undone things from last year. Like you think you're going to get them done before the end of the year, and December is insane with all the projects and the reporting and all these things that need to get done. And there's always this little laundry list of things. They're just like a tedium often that is not urgent, but often important to get done so that you can get the bigger projects done. It could be something in the CRM, unraveling a problem in a CRM, or the one I've been working on this week is getting a lot more information onto a website, because I think AI is increased the need for being more explicit about information and not relying on it coming from people, having more on the website. So all of these little things that are not urgent but are important, and trying to get some of those monkeys off your back in the early part of January. One of my big.
So by the time you get to March, they're not still sitting there. One more year.
And you don't get, I don't make as much progress on new things when I have that monkey, sitting there of all these undone things.
Darryl, what are you doing? What are you doing to be a better leader this year? New you, new year, new you. What are you doing?
January, for me, is like a Weight Watchers commercial. It's like, this year, I'm going to lose the weight and I'm committed to the plan. And then the first fire gets lit and you're reacting. And it then seems you never seem to recover from that. You fall off the wagon. So, just to sound like a repetitive individual that I am, this year, to be a better leader, I'm going to be more intentional and schedule all the things I want to do. So, for example, things that I suck at as a leader that I need to be better at because I and my team and my employer benefits. Read more books. Sounds really stupid, but do. And then share that content and discuss it with people and spark discussion. Reach out to other people in the organization or to clients or to prospects and better understand their needs and how you can help them. And then incorporate that feedback into your 2025 plan. Ask your employees what would make them happier, and then revise their bonus commissionable, performance-based pay to reflect those goals so they're committed to stay with you. Proactively communicate more as opposed to respond by email. In other words, reach out to people, go sit across from them eyeball to eyeball. This is a crazy thought for a lot of this next generation. Pick up the phone and talk to people. Face-to-face meetings are crazy. These are the things that make you visible as a leader and show the employees that you influence and the stakeholders that watch you that you're committed to your craft, and you're an individual that others need to aspire to be more like. Lead by example. That's a long-winded answer. There you go.
Let me break it down. So one is reading more. Like, we have to keep learning. We can never stop learning. And it's so hard because we're so overwhelmed with everything. But do that. Do more learning. Do more actual communication, having conversations, face-to-face. Stop slacking all the time. And I don't mean that, which slack.
Stop teasing all the time. You go.
Stop slacking and pick up the phone, have conversations face-to-face. And then the third thing is making sure that you plan the things that need to get done. Don't just think you'll get to them, but actually plan them.
I love
get them?
Yeah, that sound like a good recap to me.
All right. So Brynne, what's yours?
So I kind of have two. The first it's what's not good about me in sales is everything is like a little maybe. So I got to bring it in. All right. I have two. The first one is I identified what I want December 31st to look like. And then I backed out, or I'm in the midst of backing out because my husband's building me a phenomenal Excel spreadsheet to help me really, truly back out. What are the activities I need to do every single day to get there? And if I don't do something, or let's say my goal was 4 demos a day and I only have 3 and I enter it, it's going to tell me how many more I need.
Good.
So this is like, because that's what I need that, I'm slacking. If I want to make that goal, I want the data. So by the end of next week, I'm going to have this robust spreadsheet where I can manipulate the numbers and know exactly where I am. So that's the first thing.
So starting with data. New year, data.
Actionable, measurable data, not just numbers for the sake of numbers, but numbers that are going to tell me how I'm actually performing and what do I need to do to hit my actual goal. So my goal is to have 1,000 members by December 31st. And I've backed out, I believe, with a 40% close ratio. I need X number of demos. And so I'm going to see, maybe I have a 60% close ratio, and I don't need as many demos. Maybe I have a 20% close ratio and I need more. But this year, for the first time in my life, every day I'm going to know my exact numbers and what I need to do to achieve it.
Love it.
That's number one. Number two is a little bit more kind of daily. I am looking at every single day. This is the first thing in my day is, what is my goal today? And then as I'm doing activities, I'm asking myself, is what I'm doing right now working toward or against this goal? Because my 50% of my world is squirrel, right? I am the shiny object queen. So how do I keep pulling it back? When I'm in it, I go, am I working toward or against my goal today? If I keep doing this, am I going to hit my goal today? And if I hit my goal and I want to do squirrel, that's fine. But if I don't hit my goal, I shouldn't be squirreling, right? Like that doesn't. Yeah. And the other thing I'm just going to throw out, which is generally I do all the time, so this isn't new for this year, but those two things work, is the stop, start, and continue. What am I going to, and that's going to come from the data, and that's going to come from, am I working toward or against my goal? Am I hitting my goals? But I think that exercise is important for everyone. Okay.
I heard two things there. Just I want to play it back. Number one, I heard is if it's hard, if you have a hard task to do, give it to Brynne's husband. That's what I heard. Number one. Number two, I heard was, even though we're talking about what you need to do to be a better leader, everything Brynne talked about, well, most of what Brynne talked about is the exact same thing you would have done to be a great employee. The work you did to get to that position of leadership doesn't change. And that's important because some people think it will change one day. When I become a leader, then I'll sit and dictate from on high, and I'll delegate to Brynne's husband, and life will be good. But it's not. And Brynne nailed it.
Thank you.
All right, Chris, what you got for us? What are you doing to be a better leader?
Well, I think it really just comes down to consistency. Being able to do a lot of the things like Brynne talked about, measure it, make sure that you're staying on track with your targets for what you're trying to get accomplished, and then adjust when you realize that there's a difference in what you thought. For Brynne, it's maybe she doesn't have to have as many demos if her close rate from the demos is higher. For a team, it could be that when I'm looking at where individuals need to focus, not treating everybody like they're a cookie cutter, making sure you know exactly what areas those people need to improve on, and then working with them on that, right? So just really being consistent and hopefully intentional with the way that I'm coaching people and coaching myself, right? So keep moving forward.
Consistent and intentional are two of my favorite words. They're hard. They're really hard words to live by. So for me, it's interesting. I heard two quotes recently that I swear I've heard a million times and never really sunk into my head. And for whatever reason, I'm ready to hear them. And they're both really simple, and you've heard them a million times. Doing more of what you've been doing isn't going to get you there any faster, right? If it's not getting you there now, it's not going to get you there if you do more of it. So that was the first one. And the second one is, if you're in a hole, if you find yourself in a hole, stop digging.
Yep.
Like, that's so simple. And I heard it and I thought, I think I dig deeper and deeper. So as a leader, I think we all tend to do this. We double down on what we're already doing, thinking it's going to get better. If we just do more calls, doubling down isn't necessarily the answer. And if things aren't working, don't keep digging. Figure out what needs to be different. What do stop. And that's, for me, those are the two things that I think are really going to change the way I'm thinking. That, and I'm really thinking more about communication. So with my team, I make a lot of assumptions about what they understand and don't. And I think we all as leaders assume that the simple words that I said will translate in the other person's head as what I want them to hear. And it doesn't. So those are my big things for myself that I'm working on this year.
So can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Can I ask a question? No, sorry.
No.
The question I have is this. This is brilliant advice we've all given, and you can tell it's come from our own personal, shall we say, failures or shortcomings or lessons learned. But there's nothing new here. So what's stopping people from being successful, that we have to have this conversation now? What's the root cause of our inability to do what we know needs to be done?
I think the number one challenge is routine, habit, and fear of change.
I think those are good. I'm going to add to that. I think one of the things is that our reactions to fires. And I use that word not meaning God bless the people in LA.
California or Southern California. Yes, understood. Yes.
But we are so focused. It's so easy to get distracted by the fires. And it's so important and it takes so much energy. And if we let the fires distract us instead of dampen the fire and move on, we get everybody riled up and moving in that direction and using up all our adrenaline, using up all of our energy. So we lose track of the important things that need to be happening, because that's urgent. It's urgent and it's on fire.
So I'll propose, and I agree with everything you're saying because I've lived it, as has everybody here. The biggest challenge to being a leader, if you want to be successful in 2025, is something we haven't talked about yet. And it's a direct response to these excuses that prevent us, which is the skill of saying no. Right? Because why do we have these distractions? Why do we have fires? Why do we intend on reading that book, but we don't get around to it? Why are we not intentional when we know we should be intentional? Well, it's easy. Intentionality says, I'm going to schedule time for it. I'm going to schedule time to read that book. I'm going to schedule time to be on social media. I'm going to schedule time to write content and be active in my circle of influence that my customers reside in. And then when someone comes to me and asks for my time because they have a fire, whatever the excuse might be, you can say no. And if you can't say no, then you've got a bigger problem. Either you haven't trained your staff, you don't have the right company culture, and you don't need to say no all the time. But people are a byproduct of how they've been conditioned. So they know that 1 hour every Tuesday at 2 p.m. to 3 p.m., you're doing X. After a while, they'll clue in not to bug you between 2 p.m. and 3 p.m. on that day. But you have to say no 42 times first. That's my point.
I think one of the things that you end up seeing is if you hire the right people and you give them the ability to do what needs to get done, a lot of times the things that seem urgent get solved before you have to respond to them if you give them that time. So the number of times when I've seen things that were urgent and within 2 hours, the person had solved it because they had to. But if you become the crutch to all the problems, well, now your to-do list is going to be insanely long.
But Chris, I'm gonna stop you for a second because I think there's something really important here. And that is that when they do solve it themselves, we have to accept their solution. If we tell them that they did it wrong, they didn't do what I would have done, I would have done this, you should have said that, they are not going to do it anymore.
Well, I think maybe, but I think one of the things that you have to do is even if they get it wrong, because they will.
Absolutely.
I think the way I handle that is let's walk through your thought process on how you solved that problem and see if we can correct maybe a building block that you have stuck in there, as opposed to you did this wrong. Let's just walk through it and see if we can come up with a better solution, as opposed to berating them, because then I think you'll probably get that response of, now I'm not going to do it again because I know what's going to happen. And as the leader, you're building yourself more work at that point.
Absolutely. I think there's another thing that's going on, and I don't know if you guys feel this. I used to have the most amazing ability to focus. Like I could sit down and read a book for 4 hours undisrupted. I could sit down and create spreadsheets and analyze data and not lose my train of thought. And I think that the world has changed, like technology has changed the way our brains work and the ability to focus. Even when I'm working on a project, I'm like, oh, I need to get something from email. And 20 minutes later, I'm like, oh, shoot, I wasn't doing email. I was doing this project. I think being a good leader means figuring out how to not be so distractible in a world that is really distracting.
I love what you're saying, because we're in a TikTok society, right? We've been rewired. Everything's 3 seconds, 5 seconds, 7 seconds, whatever it might be. And that's how we're talk about slacking and how if you're not responsive enough, you get yelled at. Like, it's brutal. For me, I'm just like you. And what I learned, so the part of being a good leader is learning you. What I learned about me is I need to change my environment. So if I'm here at my desk working away, doing what I do, but now I need to go and think about strategy, or I need to really put my head around something, I physically get up and I have a nice chair in my office, but it's like way in the opposite side of the office. Whatever it might be, go get a coffee away from the desk that you associate with those nonstop fires and interruptions.
Yes, I do.
That's my suggestion.
Okay, new year, new you. What's the one piece of advice then for a sales leader or a company leader right now? If you could look at them in the eye and say, here's the one thing you positively need to do in 2025 that you haven't been doing, or maybe you haven't been focused on, what would you tell them?
You got to personally understand, be comfortable with, familiar how AI works. You need to be able to use it. You need to understand what it's good at, what it's not, how it integrates with things. You need to, when we talk about like the learning that we need to do for this year, I think there is no bigger learning than staying up to date with what is going on with AI and getting kind of deeper in the weeds on this one than we normally would on a new tech, because it's moving so fast that, there's no book, right? I mean, there are some books, but whatever they were 6 months ago, that's not what it is now. And there were some huge, huge advancements announced in the month of December. And it's going to change very rapidly everything that we do. And I think it is the number one thing that we need to learn, and we need to master ourselves, meaning we need to be able to use it ourselves so that we can think about how our teams can use it, so we can think about what kind of agent type actions do work, don't work. And I think this is one of those technologies that has been bubbling up, not being driven down. And a lot of leaders are going to get caught short this year if they don't make that their thing this year.
So number one, you got to understand AI and how it's going to impact your company and what your competitors are doing with it. Mm-hmm. Okay. Number two, Brynne, Darryl, Chris.
Well, not only do you have to understand AI, I'm going to yes and Renee. You need to have a policy on AI. You need to have custom prompts for your team to use. You don't want them to go rogue. You need to have prohibitions that they know. So one of the things we just did with a client is we have like a 7-page prohibition PDF. Words you can't say, things you can't do. There's some regulations on that. And so literally that has to go into the instructions of whatever LLM they're using. Fortunately, they're using ours, but that's great. But the prohibitions as a leader is as important as the templates and the prompts that you're giving them. Yeah, were you going to say something?
So two, we got to wrap up. So let's wrap up. So one is AI, got to know it. Two is got to control it. Like don't run rampant with it. What's a third, Darryl, Chris?
What do you, Chris?
Sure. I'll go with know where you win and who you win with, right? Know your customer, know the problems you're solving, and really focus in on solving those, because you can spend a whole lot of time chasing things that aren't in your wheelhouse, and that'll kill you at the end of the year. Won't hurt in January, it'll hurt real bad in December.
Yeah. Stop wasting time on the people who don't want to talk to you. Focus on the people that do, right?
Yep.
All right, Darryl, do you have one?
Talk to your customers. That sounds stupid. Talk to your customers and your prospects and get to understand the pains they're living with, so that you can actually speak to them with using their vocabulary. You just kind of build a relationship. Sounds so obvious. And it's amazing when I talk to people who are in leadership, especially the last time they talk to a customer, maybe if they're bitching or moaning, only if we got to escalate it. You got to change that behavior.
Just reacting. And my final one is the sales landscape is changing. It is changing. Good sales is still good sales. Bad sales is still bad sales. Stop doubling down on the stuff that doesn't work. Let's reevaluate where we are, what is working. And if nothing's working, then build it over, start over, but stop doubling down on what doesn't work. Don't just knock on more doors. All right.
Stop doing more of the stuff that doesn't work and dig in a deeper hole. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
That is what I'm saying. That is where I am.
Stop digging, build a ladder.
Build a ladder. Try a whole different approach. All right, everybody. Happy New Year. Thanks for joining us for this episode of Sales SOS podcast. We're going to have a few more discussions in the next couple of episodes about starting off the new year successfully. And that's a wrap of this episode of the Sales SOS podcast. A huge thank you to our experts for throwing us a lifeline with their insights. We hope today's episode has equipped you to navigate the sales seas with confidence. Never miss an episode. Subscribe to the Sales SOS podcast on your favorite platform. If you have questions, comments, or topics you'd like us to explore, join us live on LinkedIn every second Friday, or share your questions on YouTube or LinkedIn. Until next time, keep sailing towards those sales goals. I'm Liz Heiman, your captain here at the Sales SOS podcast, saying smooth sailing and successful selling.